Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Fischer Random World Chess Championship in 2022. A friendly reminder of what we are even doing here. 8 players are currently in Iceland, and they are playing in 2 groups of 4. The top 2 will qualify to a semi-final, and then there will be a final. And they are playing Fischer Random, which is a type of chess where, well, give me a second, the back row of pieces is shuffled. Now, you could also argue that all of these pawns are shuffled, but I would argue that only the back row of pieces is shuffled. And the players are Magnus Carlsen, Hikaru Nakamura, Matthias Bluebaum, and Vladimir Fedoseev. That is Group B. Group A is Jan Nepomniachtchi, Wesley So, the defending Fischer Random champion of the world, Nodirbek Abdusattorov, and Hjorvar Gretarsson. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. If not, listen, Icelandic names, they're tough, all right? It took me a while to learn how to say Thingvellir National Park, I believe is how you say it. Anyway, today's drama was the fact that the champion of the world did not know the rules of chess. Fischer Random chess, but chess nonetheless. Let's jump into the games. Magnus Carlsen is taking on Matthias Bluebaum early. He plays f4. f4 is like the bird opening. Now you'll notice that the king is all the way over here. To castle short, you are going to have to actually get rid of all 4 of these pieces so that this king and this rook can go here and here. To castle this way, you're going to have to move the rook so that that king can be staying in the same position and the rook can go over to d1. So it's kind of an interesting situation where the king doesn't move. Magnus plays d4, and then in this position, Magnus doesn't actually develop his knights yet, which is normally what you do, but he plays g4. Very interesting. He's taking space. Very clear the king is not going to castle this way, right? Or castle at all. He wants to develop his knight and maybe the bishop's behind the pawns. Bluebaum develops the bishop, forces the move out e3, and now here come the knights. Literally, all 4 of them just dance out of the corners. Magnus decided that this approach made sense for him because he would have the pawns out and about, ready to attack the black knight. Probably black is also not going to castle this way, but we'll see. I mean, but you can firmly rest assured that since he's pushed all his pawns this way, Magnus is not a bozo, right? So bishop d3. Bishop d3 is a solid move, pressuring the knight. Just good to develop the piece rather than have it on its home square. Black plays bishop d7. Very solid. Here, black could already begin very active operations with a move like knight c4. But the position, like in Fischer Random, is just so goofy, right? Even engines can't really properly evaluate anything. Like in this position, Stockfish is trying to tell me that a6 is the best move. And the idea of a6 is to trade off the light-squared bishop. Basically, Stockfish is saying the light-squared bishop for black is kind of terrible, and trading it like this would be beneficial for black. For instance, this exchange would greatly benefit black, because black now would have a bunch of pawns on light squares, would no longer have a light-squared bishop, so there would be good replacement, and black would be much better, as you can see. So a couple of things still apply, like trading off your worst pieces, right? So queen f1. Queen f1's an interesting move, basically preventing the bishop from ever going to b5, but also preparing this idea f5. Magnus is like, well, if I just sit here, he's gonna do this. He's gonna long castle. So let me play the move f5, which is going to make it a little bit difficult for Bluebaum to actually consolidate his position. Now, Bluebaum takes on f5, which he didn't have to do that. He could have went knight e7 or knight h4 or something. But of course, white would have, well, knight h4, actually, there's knight h5. I forgot that, instead of a king on e1, it's a freaking bishop. So this allows Magnus to get this, but Bluebaum's like, I'm a still castle. I don't really, I'm not really too worried here. Now, there's a lot of game plans here for white. Magnus plays h4, again, looking to bully that knight off the edge of the board. Bluebaum now takes the knight. He's actually not concerned with giving up a check. He's also not concerned with getting his knight attacked and then getting h7 taken. Like, Magnus is very deliberately going for a pawn here. Now, if black misplays this position and, plays a little bit too passively, then, yeah, maybe that pawn will be felt. I mean, a pawn is a pawn even in Fischer Random. Pawn is a pawn even in Iceland. Somehow the value of the pawn does not drop. I mean, if anything, the pawns are more expensive in Iceland, just like everything else. I once spent, like, ridiculous amount of money at an Icelandic restaurant. Yeah, Icelanders, I don't know how you guys do it. Is that what they're called? Icelanders? Like the New York Islanders, but Icelanders? I don't know. It's late. I just had a big meal. I have food coma. I also was doing like 5-6 hours of filming today for content that will be coming out that will remain nameless. I I cannot disclose it. So I'm tired. All right. So if I say a couple of things combined with the food coma, please forgive me. Oh, and one more thing. I re-injured my lower back, which I will probably talk about in a separate video. I was already thinking to make it. So I'm in pain and I'm tired and I have food coma and yeah. So if I say some stuff, forgive me. Queen F3. What? Well, apparently Magnus didn't like something. He must have not liked something, right? That's why he didn't play this move. And apparently there's this move F5. F5 is very interesting. The point of F5 is that if white takes, white is up 2 pawns, but white's queen gets trapped. Remember what Magnus did yesterday to Hikaru? Hey, well, now what's happening to him? Magnus is like, all right, no problem. I'm just going to consolidate. Nice and easy. And then maybe I'm going to castle long, all right? Bishop F2, couple of normal moves. All right, A5's a little bit annoying, but there's really nothing there. Now, believe it or not, here the engine just says to take this pawn. Both guys here just somehow missed this move. Like, apparently there's nothing. There's just, you can play all the way down to A3. I'm just going to play B3 or B4. Neither one of these things is scary. You don't even have to do anything. Yeah, I mean, both guys just missed that a pawn is hanging on H7. And, you know, we have A4. Just making it obvious that if you castle, you're going to be under fire. But again, where is the attack exactly? Like, just B4. Okay. Anyway. Magnus doesn't like something here about the position, and seeing as though he is about to very much have his position over there under attack, he castles short. What? He pushed all his pawns, and he castled short. Yeah, apparently the coordination of black's pieces is insufficient to actually launch a meaningful attack. And I think when he did this, Bluebaum completely malfunctioned. Like, he was unable to gain his composure at all, because after this, he took his pawn on A2, and Magnus played this nifty move B3, basically offering up yet another sacrifice of a pawn, but where the A file would now be seized and the queen here would just basically run out of squares. Black would need to sacrifice here, hoping for rook A2, and then white has rook F4, black has rook F4, and then taking this. Yeah, Bluebaum doesn't find that, he does this instead, but now the black queen is just trapped. It's just trapped. A couple moves later, he does in fact sacrifice a few pieces and try to take on C3, but Magnus gets back in time and he has a queen for a rook. The only thing that black has is this pawn. If that pawn survives, it's going to be a serious problem for white. Problem is that that pawn literally dies immediately. He pushes it a little bit too quickly. Apparently Bluebaum just had to sit here a little bit and wait, like bishop B4, but he gets his pieces in a little bit too fast, gets the knight removed from the defense with bishop E1, and Magnus picks up a nice win. So Magnus started the day strong, and today's pairings were really weird because the guys played each other twice. So Bluebaum played Magnus the whole day. Fedoseev played Hikaru the whole day. Very strange day. Now you will notice that starting position is the same. So they play the same position, both white and with black. This game between Fedoseev and Nakamura was just a barn burner. You'll remember the last game also began with F4, so it's just kind of interesting to compare the openings. Magnus went for a dark square setup. In this game, we have like a French defense by Hikaru. And then we get Hikaru lashing out very early with the move F5 and then G5. Essentially seizing control of the initiative, right? Now, bishop H5. Look at this move. Not taking back on G5 first, guaranteeing an exchange, and now queen G5, and black has a good position. Black has more space on the king side. Black will at some point decide what's going to happen here. Otherwise, it's relatively balanced game. Now pieces get developed, and now Fedoseev, look at the gallop. Knight D4 and knight B5, and he's posing problems to Hikaru. Knight A7 is check. Knight C7 is the winning of a very serious pawn. Suddenly, the only thing that black has is to turn this game into chaos by sacrificing the right to castle. That is a devastating setback. Hikaru's king is now absolutely stuck. All right? So Hikaru covers up and tries to kick out Fedoseev's knight. And essentially what Hikaru is saying here is losing the A-pawn doesn't matter because your A-pawn is weak and you're still a couple of moves away from being castled yourself, because if you castle right now, I'm going to create some counterplay. So we have rook E4 by white, C5 by Hikaru, cutting the connection here between the bishop, queen, and the knight over here. The knight doesn't have to move, though. It can get defended, and Fedoseev dances with his rook to A5. Look at this. Rook E1, rook E4, rook A4, rook A5. Like a Tetris game. Now, knight C4 is essentially the offer of a draw, right? Fedoseev is not going to take a draw, sacrifices the knight on a7 and takes on c5. So Fedoseev has sacrificed material, but Hikaru here finds an exceptional move. The only move, okay? The only move here to not be worse by black. Just incredible move. King to c8. The point of king c8 is that if you had played bishop c5 in this position, okay, I have rook c5 and I'm forking your queen and your knight. But the move king c8 kind of puts a stop to a lot of what white wants. Why? Let's say move h3 is played. Well, then black is going to play like rook a2 and there's just a pin. There's just a pin. Like the threat of white was to play bishop b6, check, and win the queen. By playing king c8, you completely neutralize the white position. And look at Hikaru sack his knight on d2 to hunt out the king. If there is this with a fork, so the white king takes a walk now. Attacked on d2, neither side able to castle. The king runs out to e3, bishop c5, knight c5, a trade, and Hikaru's pawn has snuck in one square away from promotion. Look at this. And Hikaru takes on a2. Hikaru's in the clear here. He is now playing for a win. But a nice job here by Fedoseev, trading off the knight just in time and sending us down to a 3-on-3 endgame. Now, of course, still opportunities for both parties, right? Kings are active. White's king goes hunting. Both pawns fall. Now the pawns are running. H-pawn is running up the board. Hikaru's B-pawn is running up the board. Look at how deep Fedoseev's pawn gets. But Hikaru keeping an eye on that pawn on h7. And he takes on h6. We get an endgame. And it takes 60 moves of action. But the players trade everything and breathe a sigh of relief. What a fun game of back and forth action this was. Now, the next setup that Hikaru and Fedoseev played featured a king on the other side. Like in the earliest setup that they played, the king was on one side and didn't have to move if long castle happened. But if short castle happened, the king did have to move. Well, later in the day, Hikaru and Fedoseev played a position where one rook can move this way, but then to castle that way, you would need to clear out quite a bit of material. And this king doesn't have to move short castle, right? So Hikaru plays f4 in this game with his bishop in the corner. You can be willing to bet, there it is, both guys activate their corner bishop. We have b4, Hikaru trying to crawl up the board there, and now he closes up his king. Very complicated game already early on. They just fantastically complicated game. Apparently white prefers, Stockfish prefers black here, okay? Now, as I said, in some Fischer random positions, the computer will like black if white plays inaccurately. It's really hard to understand what inaccurately really means in Fischer random, which is why it's so fascinating. Now, Fedoseev begins raining haymakers on the queen side, and he apparently has a much better position. I mean, apparently the computer really loves the fact that white's bishop is just absolutely stuffed. The knight is forced back to being passive, and now here the computer gives the move h5, which I just don't even understand at all. There is no serious attack here at all, but maybe the rook is coming in. Yeah, but Fedoseev is a human, so he attacks in the center instead. Okay, we have takes, a trade there, and now Hikaru sacrifices his c-pawn. What a courageous c-pawn, walking directly into the fire. It can be taken by 3 different things, and yet it's the only logical continuation for white, because white needs to activate the dark squared bishop. So Hikaru sacrifices a pawn for this. Now he is able to castle short, and he does. Now white has 2 rooks barreling down the f-file, and the position doesn't look that bad at all. Queen g3 is on the way. g7, look at this, a total turnaround in this game. Fedoseev covering up. All right, Hikaru activating all of his pieces. Fedoseev looking to fight back with that h5, rook h6 idea, but it's a little bit too late. The clamp has come in. The g-pawn can't move. Bishop c7, and now e4, a nice idea, looking to get that knight to d5. Oh my goodness, all of the initiative is on Hikaru's side. He gets rid of the knight. He puts his knight on d5. This is a 4.5-point knight now. Rook g6, queen e3. Hikaru solid. Where is the breakthrough? Rook takes h5. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. The rook is getting closer. The queen is getting closer. The queen infiltrates. Queen h7 is literally mate in 1. Rook f7. Queen slides into the back rank. Rook d7. And Hikaru here finds the incredible rook takes f5. He's broken in with all his pieces. He is now threatening all sorts of devastating nonsense with knight f6, rook g5, rook g6, rook h8, queen d8. Not in that order. He doesn't get 6 moves in a row. Fedoseev doesn't know what to do. Apparently, the only move here that saves Fedoseev is rook takes h4. The idea of this move is to sacrifice the rook and play king to g7. That's just so ridiculous. Fedoseev sacrifices his c-pawn. Now, Hikaru is winning if he finds rook f-h5. Just an unbelievable move with the idea to give a check and give a mate. And if rook h5 and you take, the queen is hanging on e6, rook f-h5, Hikaru misses it. Hikaru takes the pawn on c3. And now rook takes d5. Hikaru takes on d5 with the pawn, queen b6. Black is threatening this. Black is threatening to get in over here if you're not careful. White to play and win. Hikaru doesn't find it. He plays rook to g5 and offers a draw. And he offers a draw because after take, the bishop cannot take the pawn, but the queen gets down and it's just perpetual check. King g2, queen e4, and Hikaru decided to call it a day here because it was going to be a 30-move perpetual check. But white is winning. White is winning in this position if he finds the utterly incredible king to g2. King to g2 allows the check, but tries to escape to h3. And when the queen wanders off, Black's king is left absolutely defenseless, and it's checkmate in a few moves. King g2 is an unbelievable move. And if Black had found king g7 in this position, then rook g5. This is so incredible. It's not that the bishop can take the rook. There's mate in the corner of the board. Queen h8 and rook h7. Hikaru had to find king g2 and then rook g5. But he misses it, and he and Fedoseev fought to 4 draws today. So they played 4 games against each other, white, black, alternating the setups, and they had 4 very hard-fought draws. Now, and I have another amazing game for you, which is the game between Nodirbek Abdusattorov and Hjörvar Gretarsson. Gretarsson is the Icelandic wild card, and he's in a very tough group. I mean, he's in a group with the world champion of Fischer Random, the world rapid champion, and Jan Nepomniachtchi, the world championship contender. Now, Nodirbek yesterday had a good day, but you know, you had a good day 1. What? Maybe you slept well. Did you sleep well on the second day? Is he still going to bring the fight to Gretarsson? Let's have a look. Nodirbek gets his queen out early and puts it on a4. Now he is looking to trade off the light-squared bishops so that the queen can stand comfortably on a4 and not be bothered. Then he takes the entire center. Now, what Gretarsson has been doing quite a bit is a little bit of time wasting in the opening. Like, this is not bad. But yesterday he got into a little bit of trouble against Wesley when he took his time, right? He took his time a little bit too long. And the same is happening in this game. He's playing knight e4. He's playing multiple moves with both pieces, but it's okay. In fact, it's actually working. Like, his position is kind of fine. Queen goes back to c2 and now to f4. And we have a total tangle here. I mean, black is actually dominating. Not only is black dominating, Hjörvar is just better. Nodirbek did not do a good job here, and seeing as the danger is incoming with rook takes c4, Nodirbek does what anybody sensible would do, which is not just sit there. And speaking of which, how many queen moves did Nodirbek make? A lot. So don't make a lot of moves with the same piece. Nodirbek decides, all right, I got to start some sort of attack. All right, so d5. Just like Hikaru did to activate this bishop. Remember Hikaru's idea, c4 to launch a big attack? Yeah, he does the same thing. Now, Gretarsson plays f6, de, de, and is like, kid, I don't know who you think you're playing, but you have no attack. All right, you got nothing. Castles. Bishop g4. Nodirbek attacks the pawn on e6. Who's going to defend it? Well, the queen. Gretarsson has built up a -3 advantage against the world rapid champion and the leader of Group A. Could this be the comeback that we are all hoping for or maybe expecting? Let's find out. Knight f4. All right, black kicks out the bishop back. Whoa, 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 whoa. Nodirbek has gone off the deep end. He hasn't even castled. My man plays knight takes g7, and rook c2 is -5 for Gretarsson. Completely winning. Queen d3. Black now has the option here to play very calmly pawn takes bishop, just a free bishop. What white wanted in this position was to get the knight out from e6 and maybe go for some sort of mate, right? Just stripping the king open. But black is safe. There is absolutely no attack here. You can always put something directly in the way. But here, seeing the opportunity near the white king. We have knight takes f2 from Gretarsson, essentially looking to totally refute the white position. Rook f2, king f2. Black is completely winning. Knight jumps into e4. The king is just stranded in the center of the board. Now, again, Gretarsson can just take the bishop. Free bishop, second time in a row. White can go knight takes e6. Ain't nothing there. All right? Ain't nothing there. Now, granted, here, black really should play quickly. You know, because if black just plays a random move after knight e6, like a6 or something, yeah, that attack can actually be very substantial. I will take your rook, and then I will checkmate you. So, yeah, you got to play bishop b7, bishop a6. Gretarsson, instead of that, is like, well, you know what I'm going to do before I take the bishop? I want to play this obvious, like, easy move, just attacking the queen, right? That's an easy move. Now, the queen will move, let's say here, and then I will take the bishop, or I will play rook d2, and I am completely winning. All right, Nodjerbek, it's time to resign. Now, Nodjerbek does not have the eval bar. You do, so you're probably going, there's a plot twist, rook d8, but what's the blunder? The blunder is danger levels. Gretarsson needs to subscribe to GothamChess on YouTube, because Nodjerbek does, and Nodjerbek knows about danger levels. And you know what Nodjerbek knows? He knows that what's worth more than a queen? You. You're worth more than a queen. But you know what else is worth more than a queen? Not just a king, but also a queen. Knight takes f5, cold-blooded. The knight takes the pawn that should have taken the bishop. And now if this, there is knight e7 totally winning the game. But it's even worse than that. If you take on f5, I now have a line of attack to your king, and this is horrible because you have no cover. You have absolutely no cover. If you go to f8 thinking that you're going to survive, I have check. I hunt your king over here, and I hunt your king out into the open. Let me tell you right now, this king should not be here. That king should have been home. So Nodjerbek finds all the accurate moves under pressure, hides his king in the center of the board. He blocks a check with a check. He blocks a check with a check and flips the script, and here comes the bashing. Bishop f5, queen f5, knight takes e4, another check with the bishop in the corner, and Nodjerbek is in the driver's seat. Look at this, another danger level. Rook takes, there is this, and Nodjerbek sails out of danger. The king runs out of all of the attacks. Look at how many times he had to cover up. He had to cover up, he had to run his king into the middle, cover one check, cover two checks, cover three checks. The rook, knight, and bishop all blocking the attack. And it takes 38 moves. But Nodjerbek wins in the most shocking of ways. And Gretarsson still struggling against the field. Now, folks, I saved the best for last when I wanted to show you how a world champion did not know the rules. Or rather, thought he knew them or something? Allow me to demonstrate. So this is the same setup that we just saw. We actually see a very similar approach by both sides, activating their corner bishops, d6 and a5, a3. So a lot of queenside dancing in this setup. And by the way, you'll notice that the engine already thinks black is better. So bishop f6, e3, and a lot of central tension, right? Wesley occupies a very nice spot in the center there, disallowing natural white development. We have c takes d6, c takes d6, and this capture, and a couple moves later, we have the capture on b4. Now, position is better for white. Why is the position better for white? Well, it was better for black for a little bit, but it seems like Wesley kind of misplayed. Like bishop f6 maybe wasn't the right approach. It allowed white to get too much of a central presence. And even though white has this pawn, black has this annoying pawn, white is sort of able to play around it. White's knights are not subjected to develop like this. They can go like this and just get out of the way. And the bishop is actually biting its own pawn, right? So seems like Jan has done a nice job here outmaneuvering Wesley's blockade. But yeah, I mean, you give this position a couple more moves. Black should castle. White will probably play rook c1 or rook b1, and then white will castle. And we will go have a big battle on the queen side where Jan will try to convert an advantage. That's what you would think would happen after this pawn trade, right? Well, not yet. Wesley decides to activate his bishop and trade light squared bishops with Jan. No problem, knight f5. The move knight f5 actually doesn't have a threat, okay? You cannot take this. You cannot go here. You cannot take this. There's no threat. It's just a good move. Now, if black overreacts and weakens this, there is a threat. Knight here, sacrificing the knight for queen f6. But apparently just playing a very calm h5 here, which is, I don't know if you consider that calm, it's actually very reasonable. The idea being that the king could actually be kind of safe in certain situations on h7, and then the rook can come this way and the pawn will go to g6. Wesley's got a good position. Now, Wesley decides to get aggressive with his rook first. Okay, fine. Jan plays the move knight g3. Very interesting move. Basically gambitting the pawn on d2 because he wants to play knight e4, and if knight e4, he has mate. Okay, we get it, Jan. We see you. Queen c8. Queen c8 teams up with the rook, and this is on the way. But what exactly is the idea when you do this? Like, why did Wesley give away the pawn on d6? Wesley could have played rook c4 or queen f8, apparently. And then he would have still played that idea. Well, Wesley had a plan. Wesley's plan after knight takes d6 was to play this move and attack the knight. But what about the back rank? What about check? Wesley thought in this position he could do this. Wesley thought he could castle out of check. Keep in mind, in regular chess, this would never happen. But castling is moving your king and your rook. If you look up define castling chess, castling is a special rule that allows your king to move 2 spaces to its right or left, while the rook that sits on one side will do its kind of according move. But the king's not moving. So a lot of people thought this is just a rook move. So you would just block the check because that is how you would castle, okay? Like, for example, in this position, as I already showed you, this is how you castle. But your king doesn't move. In the animation here, the king kind of does a little swivel, kind of, maybe not even. So Wesley just thought that this check would be blocked with a rook hop, but it doesn't. And since he can't do that, he has to go here and lose his knight. So Wesley loses. I don't even understand. Did Wesley lose by a legal move? Because he actually played the move castles here. Yeah, a shocking game. And a shocking end to the day. Wesley did defeat Jan in a very, very long game, like a 110 move game. But after 2 days of action, keep in mind that every time you win a mini match, you gain 2 points. So every player has now played 4 matches, which means you are eligible for 8 points, right? After 4 matches, your scores after 2 days are Nodirbek Abdusattorov winning Group A convincingly. Right now, he has 8 points. Tomorrow, either Jan or Wesley is not going to make it to the playoffs. Gretarsson having a rough time, but I mean, that's life when you are the lowest seed, and it's a group of death over there. Magnus and Hikaru up top in their respective groups. Group, I should say. Fedoseev is very close, but he's going to have to pull off a big win tomorrow. Otherwise, it's just not going to work out. He's going to have to beat Magnus in a match, and Bluebaum obviously struggling. So Fedoseev has a chance to either kick out Hikaru or Carlsen, and in the other group, Wesley or Jan will be the second qualifier because Nodirbek is just unstoppable right now. I hope you're enjoying. There have been some fun games. People don't know the rules. That's everything we want in a world championship, and I will see you for day number 3 tomorrow. Get out of here.